to Soul Naked, your podcast all about embodied healing and sacred sensuality. I am Tanya Hirsch, and this podcast is intended to guide you home to your truth and feminine power. Each episode is designed to inspire you to create a pleasure-filled life that is in alignment with your soul. Let's drop the mask and dive right in.
Our infinity, our divinity.
Welcome back, my loves, to the Soul Naked podcast. Wow, I'm slowly emerging from probably the deepest, darkest part of my life. I was not sure if I'm going to be able to record this episode because the last few weeks have just been a deep, deep dive into the underworld. But if you know me, I don't only share the butterflies and rainbows of this journey, I also share the truth. And my intention behind this episode is to show you, what can show up on this path and what can happen and what you have to be aware of if you choose this path, because it sounds so nice to follow your soul and to walk the path of truth, but it is truly challenging at times. It is truly dark and deep and messy and chaotic, and I just want to show you what's also a part of this journey that is magical and free and expanding and full of beauty and magic and synchronicities, but that also requires you that you can really experience the good side to also hold the dark side of this journey. So in today's episode, I will share with you a little bit about this part, about what has been coming up, how it was triggered, how I went from this huge expansion into this huge death part. And then I will share with you physical symptoms that can show up when you heal. And this can implement for trauma healing, but it can also be emotional healing, any form of healing, what your body can show, because I wish someone would have told me that when I went through it, because I had no idea what was happening. I just trusted my body that this is normal and this is what is necessary right now. But I just want to show you that these symptoms that your body shows are completely normal. I have the privilege to have many, many sisters on the same journey now, but I didn't have them in the past when this was all happening, and nobody could understand and nobody knew what I was going through. And I felt so alone and so different, and I thought there's something not right here. But almost all of my sisters experience these symptoms, and I want you to just be aware. Maybe you're on the journey right now and these symptoms already come up. Maybe you're already familiar. Maybe you're just starting this path, and you will remember in the future my words that this can be absolutely normal. So the last few weeks have been a huge initiation into the darkest, deepest parts of my being that I didn't even know were there. As you know, exactly 1 year ago, I went through a similar journey. I feel like a tree. I'm repeating the cycles. It was exactly the same time, the same period of the year. Last year, it was even longer and more painful because it was the first real long, deep death part that I went through. I had many little initiations before, but last year was just a never-ending 6-month cycle of trauma healing. It just didn't stop. I didn't see a way out of the darkness. And this time it was 1 month, but I feel like the 6 months of last year were combined in 1 month in intensity. So I mentioned before that when I left Morea, and that was one of the reasons I left Morea for now this whole period of time. I was planning to go back in between, but I already felt that it's time to leave for a while. Spirit didn't allow me to know when I'm going to come back, how I'm going to come back, with who I'm going to come back. it was just clear that I have to leave now and to spread the magic that the island gave me with the world, and to call people in to go there. And I was just called to let it all go. And I shared this in the episode of the death portal, where I had to let it all go. And this was already a death, but this was nothing compared to what I just went through. This was just a little death portal, but this initiation now was much deeper. So one of the reasons I left was because someone tried to break into my bungalow. And this was one of my biggest nightmares manifested. I was in bed, about to go to sleep. And then I heard steps next to my bungalow. And this wasn't the first time. It happened last year. For many, many months, I slept with a knife next to my bed. And I felt unsafe, but I knew they just wanted to take things. So it was okay for me. I knew I'm safe in the bungalow. And my biggest nightmare was always to see my window moving. We have bars in front of the window, so they could not come in, but I saw literally the window moving, and my whole body just froze when I saw the window moving. And then I ran to the window and I saw him hiding, and I screamed at him, and we have him on camera. He was wearing this black mask, and he already raped 2 women in Morea. He broke into houses, and yeah, like my biggest nightmares in this moment came true. All the fear I carried my whole life of feeling unsafe, walking alone in the dark at home, being at home alone, there was always this feeling of unsafety subconsciously. And also I could feel it in my body, but I just thought it's normal because almost every woman I know has the same fear. And then in this moment, when my biggest nightmare literally got manifested by that incidents, I wasn't aware, but I was having PTSD symptoms. But because then I flew to Hawaii, and then I flew to Tulum, and the first 2 months were just expansion and magic and synchronicities, and just every day felt like a week, and there was so much magic that I couldn't even put into words. Like if I would have written a book about this, or if you watch a movie about all these synchronicities, you would not believe it. You would be like, this is too crazy. And after these 2 months, I found this gorgeous place that you see right now that I manifested. I went here on a goddess circle in December when I came here last time after my ayahuasca retreat. And when I came into this home, I was like, oh my God, I want to live here. And yeah, long story short, it became free. I was in touch with the owner, and the next day I moved in. This was end of April. And I came in here. It's the most beautiful place I ever lived in. It's a true goddess temple. It's so, so, so beautiful. And I love being surrounded by beauty. I love to create beauty. The interior here is just so, so beautiful. And I was full of tears of joy and so grateful to also live alone for a while, because the last 2 months, 2.5 months, I was always living with friends and shared, like, with one sister always. And it was nice, but I also, after spending so many years on my own, living on my own in Morea, I spent most of my days alone. It was a lot for my nervous system and for my energy to be with people all the time. So I was so grateful to arrive here. And I came into this place, and then the day I arrived, or the next day, I can't even remember, the power went off for no reason, like very in the beginning. The power went off for 5 days, and nobody knew how. It was just my apartment. All the other apartments had electricity, and nobody knew why. We thought it's not paid, but it was paid. There was just no electricity. In the first 2 days, I realized that I'm avoiding to go in here at night. I was scared to be in the dark. I was asking a friend to get my things, and I was sleeping at a friend's place. And then I was like, okay, maybe this is not normal to be in an avoidance state. So I bought candles, and I was like, I can do this. And I slept here, and this was the beginning of this portal that took me deep into my subconscious and deep into my psyche. And I just had so many memories coming up of being alone at home, being left alone during the day, but then my parents didn't come back until it was nighttime. And we had a very old house with, I believe, a lot of spirits, and I was always open to the spiritual world, but I had nobody to share it with or to understand it. So I just had all these memories being in my room, hearing all these noises, thinking someone is in the house. And one time the power went off, and I think this triggered this memory, and all the other houses had electricity. It was just mine. So I thought someone's in the house breaking in. And yeah, just so many memories of thinking, if someone comes up, how I will slide down the roof and run to the neighbors. And there were so many memories where I just ran to the neighbors crying, terrified. And my parents, until today, pretend this never happened or they don't remember. And I also remember when they picked me up, they never really talked about it. They never really took it serious. It was just almost making fun of it. And I was a little girl, I couldn't even read. So this was like at a really young age. And it just brought up a lot of feelings of unsafety. Like this feeling has been there my whole life. Even if I had a partner, I always thought if I have a man, he protects me, and then I don't feel this way. And with a man, I feel this way. But if he's gone, which happens, I still was terrified. I was still always afraid to be alone at home or to walk in the dark. And I thought it's normal, but when I went really deep, I realized it's on one hand generational, from society, but it's also me feeling so unsafe in my body because there were so many memories stored in my body where I did feel unsafe. And so this took me on a whole journey. And if you know me, I'm not avoiding the darkness. I'm here for it. If it presents itself, I'm here to hold it all, to look at it all. I'm taking my goggles, I dive into the mud, I dig the roots that are preventing me to embody the version that I came here to be. And I'm always open to that. But that also sometimes just takes me on a wild ride. And yeah, when I was diving deeper, I'm not going to dive into all the details. It just brought up a lot of memories, I saw things clearly also in my family system, in the role that I have taken in my family. So when I realized it's a really deep root, I decided, instead of investing into my business, I was about to invest into a business mentor. I'm going to give myself this time to heal this because it's big and it's connected to so many things. It's like this one sliding the window open has lifted a web of so many things that were ready to be healed and ready to be realigned. So I hired 2 somatic practitioners. I'm still working with them, 1 trauma therapist. I'm going to family constellations. I'm diving into my lineage because this plays a huge role in this topic. And I did Kambo. If you're not familiar with Kambo, it's my second time. It's not my favorite medicine, but it's really powerful. So you get burned a few dots. If you ever see someone with 2, 3, 4, 5 dots, they're normally on the arm or somewhere. I have them on my spine and on my inner leg. And it's a frog medicine. So they scratch this frog secret onto the burnt dots, and then your body purges and you sit with the medicine. And this is when my inner jaguar came out. That helped me so much to go into these dark places, into the things I was afraid of, into seeing the unseen. And after Kambo, it just went even further down. Like in the beginning, I was very calm. I was like, okay, I'm in the underworld, I'm in my shadows, it's okay. I really gave myself the gentleness and the permission to heal, and I was taking it slow. I was horizontal most of the days. For 2 weeks, it was a gentle healing part. I was just laying, I was treating myself with juices and being soft with myself, because in the past I would judge myself that I have to make money, and all this existential fear came up, and this responsibility that I have to create and to serve and to be there for my clients. And this time I really gave myself the permission. I postponed the second day of Cracked Open. I postponed 2 one-on-one coaching calls. with my clients. And it's funny because spirit always supports you. If you have a solid business, you might have noticed that already. If a launch goes effortlessly and people sign up, just you wake up to signups and it's so magical, then you are able to hold the space. And sometimes in the past, this has shown up so much, especially last year. You can have the perfect strategy, the perfect marketing. If it's not an effortless launch, it's a protection. And this has happened with my mastermind. That when I was launching it, I came back from Mexico and I was like a volcano bursting with energy and light. And I was like, I can hold 11 women. I am going to guide them into their power and into leading the mission they came here to lead. And I was so excited. And then after my summit, where over 300 women showed up, I was so convinced that 11 women will magically find their way into the mastermind. And then only 2 women signed up. They already signed up before I even launched it. They already knew. And then I was like, why? I'm able to hold more. Why is this, again, such a small launch? And now I understand. Like I was really grateful that I was so grateful. I have only 2 mastermind women and 1 one-on-one woman I'm working with, because I was perfectly able to hold them in this death portal, horizontal, supporting them on Voxer. They were almost going through the same thing. But I wouldn't have been able to hold 11. And I didn't know back then, but Spirit already knew that this is going to be a big initiation and I need all of my space holding for myself. And this is something I want to encourage you to not be harsh on yourself if you're going through this, and to not think you have to function normally, because you can imagine if you're healing trauma, if you're healing generational trauma, you need all of your energy to yourself. Inside, even if it looks like you're not doing anything, your dishes are piling up, you're laying horizontal. Inside, you're shifting your DNA, you're releasing your healing, and this takes all of your energy. And it's normal that you don't even have energy to dance, to meditate, to move. I really had days where I didn't leave the house, where I was just crying and releasing and in so much pain. And then my body started blowing up. I have neurodermatitis since I'm a child, and I didn't have a blow up since 6 years, since my narcissistic relationship. When we opened the yoga studio, this was my last one. So I thought I'm healed. I have it under control. I'm just being very aware of my lifestyle, of the things I put onto my skin and what I eat. But then suddenly, when I was so deep in this death portal, my skin blew up. I woke up to open, bloody, wet skin that was so painful and so itchy that I didn't know what to do anymore. It was everywhere. My whole body, everywhere where the skin touches, it blew up. And if you have this skin disease, you know that it's really going into the psyche. And it was is still a huge invitation for me to look into my boundaries, to look into, the way I share my light, and the way I'm still sometimes blinded and naive to see the light in other people, because every single person has this light that we all have, but some people choose to live through this layer of conditioning and pain. And because I see the light, sometimes I don't really see who they're choosing to be through this pain. And I'm starting, now that I'm slowly coming out, I'm starting to realize again, and this is a story of my life, of seeing the truth and then having to cut people off because it's just not in alignment. And I've met deeply wounded parts of myself that I thought were already healed. I saw so much in my family system. And maybe I'm going to record a podcast episode about this when it's more integrated. As you can tell, it's still very fresh and I'm still working through it. And it's very personal, so I don't want to go too much into the details. I just wanted to give you a little update why it's been so quiet. And but I'm getting out on the other side and the clarity is coming and I feel different. in between, when you're in these death portals, it's like your DNA changes, like the cocoon and the butterfly. If you cut it open, it would be liquid. And this is how I felt. It was just like so much that was trauma-based dissolved itself. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know if my job, the job that I chose, was just because I couldn't save my family. So I tried to save people by taking away their pain. Like there were so many questions evolving that were really dark and really identical, shattering. And I know it is not. I had the same thoughts last year, and I know that it's a big gift of mine, and I just have to be very careful who I'm working with, and the clients that I'm working with right now are perfectly aligned and ready to receive this work. But in the past, I sometimes worked with people that were not ready, and this was very draining for me. So yeah, just a lot of questioning, a lot of downward spiraling, a lot of darkness these days where you don't see the light, where you just crown deep under the mud, in the water, the depth of your being, seeing everything that was unconscious suddenly, like, wow, this is also who I am. A lot of shadow work, a lot of things coming to the surface in the last few weeks. And yeah, I feel them slowly coming out. So this was a little background story on the last few weeks. And now I'm going to share with you a few things on how your body can release trauma, or how your body can react to healing. Because our society is not really, it doesn't really support healing. It wants to give you a pill for everything. It wants to give you a cream. It wants to just suppress the symptom and don't really work on the root. And after a lifetime of coming to doctors for my skin disease that I talked about before, and just feeling so unseen, just coming in there, and in 1 second, the doctor subscribes another cream with antibiotics and cortisone. And I was just like, I feel this is not, even as a child, I was like, this is not it. Like, I came out crying of these doctors so many times, and I was just so sick of how we treat people that we don't even give them time to see. And it's not even the fault of the doctors, it's the fault of our system. It's just making money, making profit, making us to function. And that's the thing. Healing takes time. If you come out of a lifetime being in survival mode, and your nervous system constantly just trying to make it through the other day, and being an autopilot, and just being as a woman in your masculine all the time, and just hustling. And I'm not talking about the healthy masculine that's structured and grounded and has clarity. I'm talking about the wounded parts of you that just rush through life, that just ignore your body's needs. And if you come out of that, if you finally wake up to the truth that this is fucking bullshit, that this is not in alignment with my body, with my soul, with my beings, with my heart. And just because everybody's doing that doesn't mean that it's normal. And I had a few of these moments. My skin disease, basically every time I went to a doctor, or I tried to do it the way society told me to, I was like, there's got to be another way. There has to be another way. There has to be a root of this, so it doesn't show up every few weeks. Because every time I put a cream on my skin, it was gone. And then after a few weeks, it would just come back and be more open and more red and more worse than before. And I needed a higher cortisone cream. And it was so frustrating. And nobody knew how to help me. And then from a very young age, I started going to more alternative doctors and tried homeopathic. And I realized that there's so much connection between our emotional world, between our mind and the body, that just putting a cream on doesn't, like, why? I don't even understand why we do this. And so many people just run with this system that's so obvious against our nature. And then or when I was completely burnt out. This was when my nervous system was like, no more, this is enough. When I really tried to force myself every single day to function and to work as a school teacher, when I was clearly burned out. And it took me a second burnout to finally wake up. When I came home and I found myself on my knees, barely able to breathe because my body was holding so much tension. I was so noise sensitive. I couldn't even go on a street. I couldn't use the subway. I couldn't go into a restaurant. I was trapped in my flat. My soul was longing to be on the island that I live on now. I was like, what am I doing? But I was still so afraid because we grow up, we are so conditioned to live in this fear that we have to live this way, that there's no other way. And when I decided to trust my soul finally, that was just longing for a rest, because my whole life I've been pushing myself over my body's limits. My whole life I've been ignoring my body's needs, because if you have a 9-to-5, you just have to function all the time. And I didn't even have a 9-to-5. I had a lot of free time. But still, every single day I came home exhausted, overstimulated. I couldn't even listen to music. I was just exhausted, and I accepted that because I couldn't see a way out. And when my body forced me to, on my knees, sobbing on my bedroom floor, I heard my voice, my inner voice, very clearly for the first time. It was like, you're here for more. And this is not it. You have to stop right now. And if you make it out, you're going to help so many people. And I knew this voice was true, even though in my mind I was like, how am I supposed to help anyone? I'm like a mess on the floor right now. How am I supposed to help a single soul? But I knew this voice was true. And I knew if I find a way out, I'm not going to support this system anymore that makes us sick and makes us disconnected from our true nature. And this took me on this path of finally trusting my soul and my intuition. And this took me on this wild journey of moving to French Polynesia, to this tiny little island in the Pacific Ocean, without even being there before. Like, this is crazy if you look at it from the outside, but because I devoted my life to my soul and to never ever not trust it. Because we all know, if we don't trust our intuition, the price we pay in return is so high, and we're betraying ourselves every single time. I knew that I was in a not healthy relationship from the beginning, but I just ignored the red flags because it felt so good, and it looked so good from the outside. And when you finally listen, you realize your intuition was there all the time. You just didn't give it the space. And after so many moments in my life ignoring it, I was like, this is it. I'm going to devote my life, no matter if nobody can understand, I'm going to listen to my own inner voice. And so when I went to Morea, I thought it's going to be this happy ending story that I finally found home, and I live in paradise and find my husband and have my daughter and create my retreat center. And the truth is, it was fucking hard. This is when journey really started. And this is when all these symptoms started showing up, because for the first time, I didn't run an autopilot. Even when I left my job, I was still on this. I almost took the same conditioning into a life that already seemed free. I was running retreats, and I was having this crafts brand. I was doing huge dream catches and macrames, but I was still subconsciously running by the same system, very much in this wounded energy of always doing, always producing, always hustling. And even though I loved what I was doing, I knew there was more, and this is not in alignment with my true essence. Even though it was an amazing life already, I knew there was, the way I felt, there has to be a different way. And then I came to Morea, and I believe that my soul chose this place because it's so far away from everything. It's literally 7 flight hours, just ocean around in every direction. So when I arrived there, the first few months were magical, and then it also went down into the 6 months trauma healing part. And I wish, what I'm going to share with you, I wish someone would have told me, like I mentioned before, because I just didn't know what the fuck was going on in my body. I had no idea when my body started shaking and purging, and when I found myself on the bathroom floor not being able to get up, when my kidneys were so much in pain that I couldn't move, when I had a migraine for the first time in my life. I wish I knew that this is part of the healing process. I thought, what the fuck is happening? I really thought, what did I get myself into? And if you walk this path, if you know you're a healer, a mentor with natural gifts, and we all were born like this, if you're an artist, we get initiated. And the more we get initiated and alchemize the darkness into gold, and we extract the wisdom out of it, the more potent our work becomes, the more magnetizing it becomes, because it's more of who you are and not the conditioned version that births things into the world. It doesn't matter if you produce music, if you create paintings, if you are a healer, if you still operate from a wounded, conditioned version of you, it's not going to be as potent. Doesn't mean you have to be fully healed. We won't be fully healed until we die. But I truly believe in the sacredness of art and healing, and that it's not supposed to be watered down by trauma and conditioning. And if we dig into the deeper wounds and deeper parts of yourself, your light can shine much more brightly, and you can share your magic with so much more ease and joy. And that's the thing that kept me going, because every time we go through these portals, the way we feel afterwards, there's so much more clarity, so much more expansion. We can hold so much more. There's so much more magic happening, so much more synchronicities, so much more aliveness, so much more pleasure. But we have to be willing to dig also. We have to make this garden inside of us beautiful. If we keep on ignoring the wild weed that's growing, our garden will always not be the most beautiful version of ourselves. So I'm always here for the root digging, for the mud diving, because I know how rewarding it is on the other side. So what was the first part? I can't even remember. I just remember when you dive, you feel when you're going from a normal state into your shadows, into the underworld, you can feel it, because if this happens for the first time, your whole system is like, oh my God, what's happening? No. And you want to cling like you're drowning, and you keep yourself above the water with every strength of your being, and you just don't want to go down there until you don't have strength anymore. And your body needs a pause and space for that to happen, to even meet yourself that deep. But if you give it the space, it's not comfortable to go there. But the moment you release the resistance and you don't fight it anymore, and you surrender into the underworld, you realize that this is also you. This is who you've always been. You've just, ignored it and put it under the rug for your whole life, because society also just promotes the light side of life. But there's always both. There's lightness and darkness. And we can't avoid the darkness if we want to feel whole, if we want to accept of all that we are and not project our wounds all the time on other people and bring it into our relationships. We need to go into the underworld to see and face our shadows, to integrate them, to accept them, that they're part of us, maybe even love them. And we need to look at the parts of ourselves that we have been exiled. There's so many wounded inner child versions of us living down there that we've abandoned our whole lives, and that show up in our relationships when we get triggered. Most of the time, it's not our adult self getting triggered. It's a wounded version of us that's casted away in the underworld. And sometimes it's even shy to trust you. If I guide my women through healing journeys, and for the first time they meet that part of themselves, not always that, oh, come into my arms and I hug you and everything's fine. I'm just going to reparent you and everything's good. It's a somatic, deep experience to first build the trust with that version, because you've abandoned this version of yourself. You've pretended it's not there for your whole life. So the first time you see her, she might be shy and like, I don't trust you because you've abandoned me my whole life. But if you build the trust and slowly encounter her and slowly embrace her and make her feel safe that you're not going to leave her anymore, and you tell her the things that you needed to hear as a child, the reason why you cut that part of yourself away, this is when true healing can happen. It's not when you've listened to the affirmations and smudge Palo Santo every day. This is like the real work that requires strength to look at it and to do this work, and then also to integrate it into your everyday lives when these patterns show up, to not project it on your partner, but to sit with your inner child. So the first few weeks when I went into this portal were really about releasing a lot of stuck memories and emotions. Because when you're living in survival mode and you're just making it through the day and just reacting to your life and everything that gets thrown at you, you think life is happening to you, when in reality it's always happening for you and inviting you to come into wholeness and to remember who you truly are. If you're constantly just like a hamster wheel, try to make it through the day and always at your nervous system, if you slow down and you go there, your body suddenly has space to release all of those memories that are stuck in your body. And you can imagine they are not in your consciousness because your mind is so smart, it makes you forget about them. But if you have the space, and especially if you spend a lot of time in nature without people, just you and nature, no phone, these memories will come up. Your body knows how to release them, but you need to feel safe and you need space to do so. Normally you cannot go to these spaces if you just run all the time in your life. Your body needs openness and safety so these can slowly be released. So sometimes when I went on a hike, out of nowhere, it started okay, and then suddenly I crossed a river and I had this memory coming up of the government doctor telling me I just need to take a pill and go back to work next week, when in reality I couldn't even go in a restaurant or in a street. And this was a traumatizing event for me, and trauma is such a big word. It was just really, really hard for me to hear. I think I cried for 2 days straight because I thought this day of being finally a government doctor would give me something to hold on to, that they tell me either you are retired, you go back, we give you an office job. Everything was an option for me, but not going back to school because it was just not possible. It would have been dangerous for me to go back to school because I couldn't handle the noise and the intensity. And even the doctors, everybody said they can't send you back. And then she said, just take a pill and then you go back next week. And I was just like scared at it, and I didn't even realize. I thought I forgave her, and that's the thing. Sometimes our mind is so smart to say, oh, she's just in pain, it's okay, I forgive her, but only from your mind, and your body is still in this shock. It just froze in that moment and you never really released the pain. And that's what's necessary. You need to go back to these moments to feel them. And I promise you, they feel like you're in this situation right now. I felt like I'm sitting in this government doctor office, receiving these words and finally feeling the emotions in my body that I couldn't feel back then because it was just too much, too intense to receive in that moment. So this was one example. I just fell on my knees and I cried into the river and I felt the pain, and then I could forgive, but from an authentic place. I could forgive from my heart. I could see her pain and I could still release the resentment and the anger I was still holding in my body. And this continued on hikes, and when I was swimming in nature. I had the privilege to be in the most beautiful place on earth in Morea for this process. because my soul knew in a cold winter place, I would just not go there. I would just be miserable all the time. And then I realized you can really be in paradise and feel like shit. Like I was feeling the worst I ever felt in this period, while being surrounded by the most stunning nature on this planet, by seeing so much beauty every day and still feeling so dark and deep inside. And that's also when I realized, I always thought when I live on this island, then everything's gonna be good, because I was blaming a lot on the weather. I was like, Germany, I can't handle this anymore. My body was rejecting the cold. And I was just like, I want to be barefoot on the beach every day. And I want to be surrounded by palm trees and nature and beautiful people. And then I had that. And this was when I couldn't give my power away to the weather or to people. This was when I realized, okay, this is actually something within me that needs to be healed. And I finally didn't run away from that anymore. I felt so many memories and emotions that were stuck in my body. My body was just, like I said, one way is crying it all out, feeling it in your body. It's a somatic experience. You feel these emotions. You don't even have to understand it. Your body knows exactly what to do. So you can cry, and it's going to be a lot of crying. Your body can shake. Your body can just shake. And animals do that all the time. If you see birds, if they fight, they just shake and then it's good. Dogs do it, but we forgot to do that. We carry that trauma in our body. So if your body begins to shake, and this can happen during yoni de-armoring, this can happen just you laying on the bed, a memory comes up and your body starts shaking, let it. It doesn't have to make sense. Just allow your body. It's so smart. It knows exactly what to do. Allow it to shake. It can also happen that you need to throw up, especially if you have blocked energy in your throat. And I had so much of that. It can be an energetic purge. And that sounds like throwing up, but there's nothing coming out, more like a and you feel it coming up, let it, don't swallow it. It's all the things you swallowed and you didn't speak up. It wants to come out, let it. So your voice can become clear, so you can speak your truth the next time. It all wants to come out. It can also be a physical purge that you throw up. I had a few days where I was just on my bathroom floor vomiting. I couldn't even eat. It was just liquid, and it was not a beautiful experience. But I purged. Until now, I don't know what I purged. I just knew this is generational. This is coming out of the cells of my body to be finally released, because now it has space and someone to let it out and not to carry on and to pass it on to our future generations. And the thing that kept me going back then was really, I was always saying in my mind, when there were days where I thought I cannot handle this anymore, I was like, I'm doing this for her. I know I'm going to have a daughter one day, and I kept repeating, I'm doing this for her. I'm doing this for her. It stops with her. Because the more you wake up, the more you see how much is not even yours that you're carrying, that it has been passed down because nobody had the tools, the time, the money, the energy, the wisdom to heal it. And if you're listening to the podcast, chances are pretty high that you're also the black sheep of the family that breaks the generational cycle. And this is, honestly, this came up in this part. I'm sometimes really angry that I'm the only one. When I saw a picture of my family, I was really angry. I was like, why do I have to do all of this work? Why does nobody see the truth? I just look into the faces and I see everything. I feel everything. That's what makes me a good mentor. But I needed to feel that anger in order to also accept them for who they are. Because there was a part of me that was still waiting for them to heal, to do the work, until I took full ownership and responsibility to do my healing and not wait. If my mom would behave different, then I would feel better. No, I have to sit with this wounded girl that still is in so much pain because she was abandoned, and to reparent her and to sit with her, to love her. This is my job. It's not my job to blame my mother for what she couldn't give me. It's my job to take my power back by not complaining all the time and not blaming anyone. But there was this part of me that needed to feel the anger, that it was not okay, that it's not okay to leave a child alone at home, that it's not okay to neglect the emotions, even though they didn't know there was, because part of me was like, they didn't know any better, they didn't receive it, so it's okay. But there was this anger inside of me that needed to feel it, that it's not okay, even though they didn't know, it was still not okay. And I think that's such a big part of this process too, to not spiritual bypass and say, oh, it's okay, they didn't know any better, but to really feel the anger. There were months last year where I just screamed underwater and I released so much anger in my system that was stored there. So this can be another release, a vocal release. And I invite you, if you don't use your voice, to sing. Sometimes I just put on music and I sing alone at home, or I go to kirtans here in Tulum. I have the possibility to sing in community, to activate your voice, because this is the shamanic tools are breath, sound, and movement. And sound is so essential for your voice to finally come home, to finally speak your truth. And I shared this a lot. I wasn't even able to speak one sentence in front of a camera. My voice was so blocked. There was so much fear of being judged, so much fear of being not good enough, so much in my throat that I couldn't, in my first home retreat promo video, I couldn't even say one sentence. We had to film it like 30 times. I peeped 3 times in between. I just wanted to, I was so frozen because there was so much stored in my throat. And now I can speak about yoni de-armoring without a problem. And I'm still on this journey. I feel there's always more layers that we can release. So shaking, purging. You can get a migraine, like your strong headaches that will go away if you release these traumas. You can have, I had once before my ayahuasca retreat, the moment I signed up, these initiations sometimes begin before I even take the medicine. And I had a huge fear purge, and fears in the liver and in the kidneys. So my kidneys were in so much pain that I could not move. I remember laying in my bed, I had a migraine for the first time in my life. I never have headaches. And in my kidney. And I was laying there, I think my neck was even sore. This is my weak spot, my neck getting stuck. And I remember I could not even make it to the fridge. I needed to ask my neighbor. And this is always the challenge for me. If I'm in my power, I can ask for help by now, which I couldn't do in the past. But if I'm in a really weak space, it's terrifying for me to ask for help. But this was also part of the initiation, to show my rawest vulnerability, the ugly side, the one that's helpless, the one that's raw and just ugly. That's how I felt. To ask for help in that state was terrifying for me, because I've been let down in the past so many times when I asked for help. Every time I asked my mother if she could do something for me, even was a tiny, tiny thing, she would react annoyed and ask me if I cannot do it by myself. So this is why I became this hyper independent woman that did everything on her own. I moved furniture even as a child on my own, because I didn't want to ask for help, because I didn't want to feel this pain of being a burden. And that's why in my life, I did everything on my own. I was super hyper independent. I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't receive. I was so tense in my body. And when I released more and more, I really learned to soften and to allow, and that there's also another reality, that people are happy to help. Just as much as I love helping, people love to help. It's in their nature. And just sometimes because we don't experience that, it's terrifying for us. For me, it felt like death asking my neighbor if she could make me a soup. I was like, oh my God, I'm such a burden. I'm a horrible person to ask for this. I felt shame. I felt like she cannot see me like this. Oh, and I'm getting emotional even just thinking about it. She came into my bungalow and she gave me a hug and I cried, and she made me a soup. And this was so healing for me. And this was when I started to slowly allow myself to be seen in these states. I cried before people. When I went on retreats, or even when I'm guiding, I'm a very open person, but normally I'm in the upper realms. But when I'm really in the death, this was another initiation for me to allow myself to be held and seen in that. And in my ayahuasca retreat, I shared this before, I had this beautiful moment where my neck was stiff. It was before Kambo. I was so afraid of Kambo that I woke up and I couldn't move my neck. And a massage lady came. I couldn't even move it like a centimeter. And 3 women helped me to sit in front of the bed. And she was massaging my my shoulders and my spine. And I had a huge baby trauma release. And I just cried. Like it just came out in all the ways. I was a mess. I was topless, sitting in front of this bed, like in the lowest state you can imagine, with 3 women in the room. And they tried to sit me up. So I was leaning forward. And when I tried to sit up, I fainted because it was just too much pain. And my head dropped down. And when I woke up, one of the women was touching my hand and looking in my eyes with so much love. And Shani, my sister, she was behind me, and the massage lady was there. And this was the first time I was really like seen in the rock bottom. But it was so healing for me to see I'm still lovable in these states. I'm still worthy to receive in these states. And this continued ever since, that I'm now able to really allow myself to be seen. I had bigger releases in healing circles. Normally I would always be the one that doesn't take too much space and feels so much of others. And this was when I started to have huge releases and huge healing moments, even in groups, and allow myself to be seen in a complete being an utter mess. And there was so much magic for me in experiencing that, because when we don't grow up feeling safe being that version of ourselves, if that version is not loved and accepted, it can feel terrifying. And what else? I mean, the shaking is really the part, and the purging. And there can be many symptoms, like even my skin blow up now it's always your body speaking to you. So if your body is showing symptoms, a lot of people have stomach problems, digestive problems. This is mainly related to undigested emotions. You can hold almost every physical symptom is related to trauma or an emotional cause. So if you have problems in your womb, if you can't get pregnant, there's always a deeper layer to that. If you have tension in your body, like I'm still releasing that, but I was holding so much tension in my shoulders and I never knew how and why. And when I released the war trauma from my granddad that I shared in my podcast episode about ancestral healing in my Wachuma ceremony, a huge part of that went away. So much our body is holding is in the subconscious. It's not in our awareness. It's not like, oh, I get cancer because I'm aware of that. It's subconscious. And if we don't address it, if we keep on running the hamster wheel and just function all the time and be there for everybody and ignore our body's needs, it can cause real physical problems. It can cause so much unhappiness, so much disconnection from ourselves, from other people. The relationships will suffer. And even though this work is fucking hard, I'm not gonna lie, it really takes a lot. And I see it in my clients too. So I have a lot of, I bow to my clients that they walk this path. I bow to you. If you listen to this, that means that you're either open to it, otherwise you would have switched off by now, or you're already walking this path. I bow to you. It takes so much courage and strength. And I feel like we need to honor ourselves for that too. Because sometimes when we're in the darkness, it feels like nothing is working. Who am I? Like all these existential big questions. But hey, it's fucking brave to walk this path, to break generational causes. Like you're the first in your lineage that has the bravery to finally look at it. And that deserves a gold, in my opinion. Like that's the biggest gift you can give to this world, because you're not just doing that for yourself. If this was just for me, I would have given up last year. I would have probably killed myself. I was in a really dark place last year. But I knew this is not just for me, and that kept me going, because I know every person I meet now, I create a new way of living by doing this work. I ripple it out. Every person I give a smile that is used to see just sad faces, it can change their life, and they go home and they smile at someone. Your light can really change the world in the little mundane moments in life, in your family system. You don't have to blame everybody like, they did this to me, this is why I feel this way. You can change your story and your internal world, and your outer world will react to it. But it takes a lot to really take your power back and taking 100% responsibility for your feelings, for your emotions, for your state of being, because we give so much power away by blaming. It's the weather, it's my mom, it's the food, it's because my foot is injured now. Like, we give so much on the external, when in reality, we need to take our power back inside. And this power that comes from within is untouchable. And this is how you gain the resistance, the resilience, the strength to walk this path and to be a leader for this new earth that is not based on trauma. So yeah, I hope this episode is helpful for you. I'm sure if I stop recording, I have 10 million other things that come up that can show up. Just know that any physical symptom, I have, for example, a huge swollen lymph node right now, your body is speaking to you. And it's an invitation to look within instead of just putting a cream of it, instead of just swallowing a pill, to listen deeper to your emotional world, to your mental world, to your body. Your body shows you if you listen, but if you're running and distracting and hustling, you cannot listen to your body and your soul. You have to create space. You have to create a safe container. And I cannot tell you enough how important it is to be held in this. There's a reason why I work with 4 women right now on this topic, because it doesn't have to be so hard. It is still hard. Even if you're held, you still go through it on your own, but allow yourself to be held. Allow yourself to be supported. Allow yourself to be seen, so you can see yourself deeper and you can become the most authentic, beautiful, radiant version of yourself. And this requires to shed all these layers, all this pain that doesn't belong to you. Your light wants to shine. All you do by shedding this is just coming home into remembrance of who you truly are, beyond your story, beyond your pain, beyond what has happened to you. It's coming home into feeling your true state of being, that is abundance, that is love, that is purity. And we need the strength to have boundaries. We need the strength to trust our intuition. But you can, but I don't want you to walk around with this thick layer of pain and to show the world a watered down version by what can get through the cracks of your pain and conditioning. I want you to show all of you to the world, because it's the biggest gift and we need it right now. And your light is so, so needed. So allow the healing to happen. Create space. There's always a way. I know the financial part is a huge block on this, and I know what I'm talking about. I thought I'm gonna die on Morea because my business was going down, my savings were going down. I thought I'm gonna die on this island because I can't make it financially, and money is so connected to emotional entanglements as well. But this is going to be another episode. But I just want you to know that there's always a way, that you are supported if you choose this path. I know there's so much fear financially to hold on to what's safe, even though your body is like a full no and your soul knows, trust, jump. I know this can be something that keeps you from walking this path, even though you already know it's time. You're supported. There's always a way. And it's such an honor to walk this journey with you. I see you. I know this can be hard, but you also know how rewarding and worth it is on the other side. So if your body is hurting, if your body is shaking, don't try to analyze it. Don't try to make sense of it. Allow your body to do what it needs to do. And nature is so beautifully open to receive your pain. You can release your pain. You have to feel it, but then you can give it back to the earth. Every time I had a release, I went into the ocean, I went into the river, I went into a waterfall, I gave my blood back to the earth. On my moon, you can really work with nature, and it doesn't ask for anything in return. You can just hug a tree and feel the unconditional love from a tree. You can hug yourself. Like, there's so many ways that nature can support you in this, because you are nature, and the more time you spend in nature, the natural effect of osmosis can work on you. Because if you're surrounded by concrete and thousands of people that all carry their trauma, and your nervous system is just always on edge, if you go into nature long enough without your phone, and after a while your mind slows down, you naturally, that what happens to me in Morea in these 1.5 years, because I was surrounded by nature and I didn't have many people there. I was surrounded by this pristine water and the green of the forests, and just being in nature with myself, your system doesn't have another chance but to release the layers that you've built around you that are not the truth. And this is painful, it's intense, but what comes out on the other side is the purest version of you, because you can remember who you truly are before all of these things can happen. Every time I'm going through these death portals, I come out on the other side and I'm like, this was intense, but actually I feel more like me now. It's not even I'm a new version, I'm like, I'm more me. I'm more authentic. I feel more like, wow, I feel more free. I feel more me. I feel like almost like coming home to the little version of me before all this shit happened. And we all carry so much shit. And I don't want you to be the version that carries this shit into the grave and that lives in victimhood and lives or even hurts other people through this pain. I want you to come home to yourself, to your light, to your love, to your soul. This is my biggest intention with all that I do, that you can come home to yourself. And if you want to experience, I'm going to leave it for now. If you want to experience the magic of Morea, James and I have 3 spots left for our Wild Soul retreat in September. And this month we're offering 444 euros. So if you have been dreaming about swimming in these pristine waters, swimming with rays and sharks and whales, and swimming in waterfalls, hiking through fairy tale mountains, planting corals, we would love to have you. We have an ocean view villa right where I live. So we're gonna do all the amazing things that I experienced in the last 1.5 years. I'm so excited for you to experience the magic of this island. And just send us a message if you feel the call to join us. And a few things that I, of course, remembered when I already stopped recording, a few add-ons. The first, the guy in Morea is in prison. I should have mentioned that when I invited you to come to Wild Soul. So he's in prison, everything is good. The second thing that I forgot to mention, one of the most important physical effects of trauma healing is a huge amount of rest. So if you have days, weeks, months where you just, I mentioned it a little bit, but I just wanted to point it out really clear. It's a normal effect if you've been running your life on survival mode and hustling and exhausting yourself, that your body needs time to rest. So this can really be weeks of just having zero energy, that you can't even go to buy groceries and leave the house. And especially in these deep dives into the underworld and into trauma and generational healing, it is completely normal that you don't have any energy, because your whole system is healing this on a subconscious DNA level. So this was the thing that I was confused about the most, that I felt I'm not doing anything. I'm so exhausted. I don't have energy for anything. Like even the last few weeks, I sometimes didn't leave the house for a week because I just needed my energy for myself, and I didn't even have energy to move and to dance. I was just literally laying in bed all day. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you if you allow yourself the time to rest and to dive really deep. And I know 5 minutes in the state can feel like 10 hours, and it can be tempting to distract yourself and to still keep going. But I promise you that the healing will be so much deeper and the effects will be so much more long lasting if you give your body the rest that it needs. And we are so driven to overexhaust ourselves and to think there's something wrong if we're being lazy, if we're just laying horizontal. So this is very important for me to mention, that this is completely normal. It's a side effect. Most of my clients go through this phase that can even last years. If you've been ignoring your body for so long, it can totally happen. I have periods where I have this for weeks or months, and then I have more energy and I can totally live a normal life. And then sometimes in a deep healing portal, it happens again. So if this happens to you, allow yourself the time to rest, to pause, to receive, to find stillness. I always get massages. I treat my body with juices and soups, anything. Like if you're moving through heavy emotions, emotional releases, it's good if you eat grounding food, everything that grows underneath the earth, and light food, so your system is not occupied with digestion, but you can really go into the emotional alchemy. And yeah, it's okay to leave your messages on red. It's okay to say no to events. I didn't go to any social events because being in other people's energies in this state wouldn't have been beneficial for me. So I cocooned like a crazy cave person, and it's totally fine, and I benefit from it so much, and you're allowed to do that too. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I have a birthday sale. It was my 34th birthday a few days ago, and I'm offering 70% on most of my offerings. So if you've been longing to dive into my world, but the financial part was a problem, I offer 70% on most of my courses. So Rise with Purpose, my Living Free Sister community, my 2 home retreats, Cleanse Home Retreat and Slow Down and Recharge, and Dripping in Self-Love. There's a lot more that I forgot right now, but I will link everything in the show notes. And with the code BirthdaySale, you receive 70% until end of the month. So this is what I wanted to add, and I see you in 2 weeks.